really cool. I can't see all of you, so I'll be like squinting and walking around. Hello, everyone. I met some of you yesterday. That was amazing. Okay. So, by the way, amazing event. So special for me to be here, and even more special that I'm usually on stage on top looking down. I'm looking up, so this is going to be fun. Let me tell you a story. So I was about maybe 12 or 13, and my mom asked me to do one thing. She said, look, I started making soup for dinner. Can you please keep an eye on it, let it simmer for a few hours, and just like take it off the stove? And she went to work. And I said, yeah, cool, like no big deal, right? I can do that. Now, as I was a normal 12, 13-year-old, so I totally spaced out. I went outside, I had a good time. I came home, and the soup boiled over. The pot was completely scorched, and luckily I came home before there was fire. So now, many years later, I'm responsible for scaling systems, and I see the same patterns that data teams follow. We build something, it works, we walk away, and we come back to disaster. So today's talk is going to be about a little bit about cooking and gardening and baking. I promise it's not a cooking demo, though maybe it would have been fun, and maybe you'll walk away hungry. But I was preparing for this keynote. I realized that apples are such a beautiful analogy to what we do, right? Like, think about it. You plant a tree, you take care of it, you harvest, but then if you walk away, everything rots. But even the perfect apples, they're just the ingredients. What people actually want is what we do with those apples. And here's where Omenapiirakka comes in. By the way, that is the only Finnish word I can pronounce, and hopefully I'm saying it the right way. Omenapiirakka doesn't bake itself, right? And if you're like thinking, oh my gosh, did you just say it? I did. Because Omenapiirakka actually isn't your generic apple pie. It is very special, it requires care, it's intentional, it is distinctly Finnish. So success at scale isn't an accident. It doesn't happen because we had good intentions or moved fast. It happens because somebody kept paying attention. But before we go any further, let me make sure that I prove to you that I am an expert. Yeah, that's me in my kitchen, covered in flour. I'm totally an expert. The cool thing about that is that actually the best lessons that I've learned in life, it came from that kitchen. So I've been in data for over 2 decades, ranging from database administration to AI strategy. And what I learned is that the best strategy lessons didn't come from conference rooms. They actually came from my kitchen. Because whether I'm making dinner for my family or trying to scale platforms for thousands of users, the foundations and the patterns are exactly the same. Good prep, quality ingredients, a little bit of mess, a team that helps you and occasionally makes fun of you, and cleaning up as you go. Because you can't scale what isn't solid. So let's talk about what that actually means. So most people equate scaling to speed and size. More data, more dashboards, more AI, but growth without care doesn't actually last. So I think of data as a garden. We plant the seeds, but if we walk away, nothing grows. So this is what these foundations are. So every data, just like garden, requires structure, attention, and care. So your infrastructure, your architecture, and your data models, that's your soil, right? If the soil is poor, nothing takes root. You have to think about your foundations. They have to be scalable, reliable, and adaptable. They actually have to be built with the intention to evolve. I can't see that screen. Your metadata, that's your map. That's what helps your humans as system find what they're looking for without getting lost. Your governance, that's your quality control. That keeps weeds from taking over your garden. testing, that's your early detection. This is how you catch problems before they kind of take over your garden. And of course, ownership. Just as important, you need to have someone who actually cares. So, and just like with any garden, sometimes things don't grow, and that's okay. What's really important is that someone noticed. So when you do all of these things, your systems will hum, your dashboards will be beautiful, your AI will work just fine. But maturity really isn't safety, because when you stop tending the garden, that's when the rot sets in. So this quote is attributed, I love this quote, to Woody Allen, the filmmaker, who said, "If I get too mellow, I ripen and then rot." So I think of that quote every time my husband yells at me about the fruit flies. So now, you can imagine that. You have a beautiful bowl of apples sitting on the counter on Monday, and then you come back on Friday, and there's like a swarm of fruit flies around it. Same thing happens in data. My gosh, this slide is killing my eyes, sorry. Maturity can feel safe, but that's just illusion. At scale, the biggest risk isn't failure, it's actually comfort. So a little while ago, I was talking to someone, and they said something that kind of stuck with me. We were talking about data strategy, and they said, I think, I've been thinking about it, and I think data warehouse is where data goes to die. I was like, loud gasp. I was speechless, and that doesn't often happen with me. I was shocked, I was appalled, I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell them that this isn't how it's supposed to be. But then I kind of thought about it. And how many times have you rebuilt your data warehouse? Not because it was broken. It was because it became too rigid, too hard to change. We built it, it worked. Then we walked away, and it stopped working. So this isn't really failure, right? That's stagnation. And stagnation, that just rot in slow motion. So your data model was perfect in 2019. Your pipeline was running beautifully at 10% of volume of data. Your data governance was amazing for 30 users, not 300. It's not that the system stopped working, it's just that the world around them changed. And stability actually isn't the goal, it's adaptability. So, because in data, just like in the fruit bowl, freshness doesn't last without care. So how do you stay fresh? Well, you disrupt yourself before somebody else does. You rebuild before something is broken. You modernize before you really have to. You evolve your systems while they're still working. Because the alternative is waiting for the fruit flies to arrive. And trust me, you don't want for my husband yelling at you, or worse, for your leadership. So this is probably also familiar. So this is how a lot of organizations react to change. Someone invents a wheel, faster, smoother, scalable, beautiful, round. The answer is, sorry, we're too busy. This is not when just systems die. This is when your culture starts to die. Because that engineer that's been asking to refactor the pipeline for 2 years, no, sorry, we're too busy. At some point, they stop asking. And even worse, they just leave. We often confuse activity with progress. And that's where we end up not just with tech debt, but with morale debt. And morale debt is very, very, very hard to change. So when we say we're too busy to fix something, it doesn't mean we just don't have time. It means that we accepted that the pain is our new normal. So the other thing is we can't, sorry. The thing is you can fix a bad decision, but you cannot fix a decision you never made, and it's completely impossible to fix a team that stopped believing that the change is possible. So how do you change that? Well, you have to start moving, right? A few bruises, a few accidents that are okay. They're just the signs of life. And I know this is like such a deep slide, and I feel very sad about that I had to put it on. Very heavy. And this is the trap that all of us fall into. We always wait for someone to approve the change, to give us budget. We wait for the leadership buy-in, but the thing is we don't have to. We just have to start moving. All right, well, so how do we stay fresh when we're already busy doing all kinds of work, when we really don't have time? So here are the things. Motion doesn't mean chaos. It means intentional evolution. So here are the things that we can do to kind of start making changes. Schedule disruptions, right? Stop waiting for the perfect time. There is no perfect time. Just find one thing and make a change. The key word here is before urgency, because if you wait until something breaks, it's too late. Urgent changes are expensive, they're disruptive, and they're very stressful. Create safe space to break things. This is how you avoid what-if situations. So create environments that are running in parallel. Schedule your migration at 10%, 25, 50% volume. Running things in parallel is actually cheaper than catastrophic failures. Celebrate the bruises. When someone refactors in pipeline and it breaks 3 dashboards, that's actually not a bad thing. It means you discovered something that didn't exist. So make sure that you celebrate those things. When you refactor something and something breaks, fix it, document it, celebrate that you found it before it found you. Set expiration dates. Python end of life, schedule upgrade in the next 12 months, not eventually. Vendor deprecation, put it on a calendar right now. Schedule evaluation, modernization evaluation of your data warehouse now. Don't wait until it's too late. Make one thing touchable. We all have those systems that everyone's afraid to touch. The fragile one, the political one. So spend a week, document it, talk to the people who use it, and then just make one improvement. Maybe add a test, maybe improve a query. Prove that that system is okay to change, and it's definitely touchable. So the thing is, again, not about moving fast and breaking things. It's moving fast in a very controllable fashion, because motion prevents decay. But motion doesn't mean reckless change, right? Motion is actually intentional evolution. And so this is a picture of my son in the garden a few years ago, and he's not thinking about infrastructure or tech debt. He's doing just what any garden needs. He's giving it care. So regular attention, consistent and intentional maintenance, that's how you prevent decay, and that's how you stop dragging that cart with square wheels. Okay, so let's talk about another thing. We often confuse volume with value. So I bet this looks familiar. We are moving petabytes of data. We created 200 dashboards, 73 pipelines. Those are fun metrics. And as a matter of fact, my team does it too. At the end of every year, we kind of publish what I call vanity metrics, how much data we have in our data lake, how many active users connected to our platform. And as a matter of fact, we even give out a dirty data award for the longest running query. So those are fun to measure. They're easy to brag about. But the uncomfortable question that we don't always ask ourselves is, did that actually matter? And the truth is, more dashboards doesn't actually mean more insight. More data doesn't actually mean better decisions. But when somebody asks you, what did your team do last quarter? It's a lot easier to say, oh, we created 5 dashboards and 10 pipelines, than to say, oh, we fixed a bunch of tech debt and just made like 5 pipelines work really well and be useful. So the problem isn't that we measure wrong things on purpose. It's just that we operate within systems that reward activity versus outcomes. It's okay. I've been in that position as well. I stood in front of leadership, and I told them that we ingested 20 data sources, knowing that only a handful of them were really used. That's all right. At least let's be honest with ourselves about what we're actually measuring, because all of your dashboards and pipelines and APIs are just the ingredients. They're not actually what matters. So they're not outcomes. What makes them valuable is structure, context, and care. So here are the 3 traits of high-performing teams. Number 1, start with the problem, not the data. So high-performing teams always ask, what problem we're trying to solve? Why is it important to solve it now? And if there's no answer, they don't work on this problem. As a matter of fact, fun fact, this morning I had to reply with the exact same question to the team. I really appreciate you sharing your solution with us, but what is the actual problem we're trying to solve here? And the next answer might be, here's a different solution, or perhaps, this is not the most valuable business problem that we should focus on right now. So this is right hot off the press for you. Number 2, make it usable. Models, APIs, dashboards, data sets, they only matter if people can find them and trust them. So make sure that you have your documentation, that you have context and care, because structure and usability turn raw data into something very valuable. And of course, number 3, kill what isn't working. This is something that we don't do really well. And it's actually even harder to do because it feels like we're admitting failure. But that's not the case, because every asset that is unused, that's sitting there, adds to the noise, it adds to the confusion and to maintenance overhead. So many teams confuse volume and scale. And we seem to be building a lot of everything, right? We kind of keep piping stuff out. And the thing is, that doesn't actually necessarily add value. So before you know it, what could have become an insight turns into compost. Okay, so I love a homemade pie, just like everyone else. As a matter of fact, for this keynote, I baked Omenapiirakka from scratch. It took time, it took effort, but it was delicious. Now for Thanksgiving, that is actually coming up in the US in a few weeks, I buy frozen crust. Don't tell anyone. Not because I can't make it, but because it actually saves time, so I can focus on other dishes. Now, the best part of the American pie, if you've ever had, is actually the filling. So that one I make from scratch. The pie is still delicious. Everyone still gets fed. This is the trade-off decision that I make, and it's the right one for me. So the same logic applies in data. Not every solution has to be your Omenapiirakka, your custom-built thing. So I'm part of build versus buy conversation all the time. So this is how I think about it. And I know maybe you can read some of it. But basically, the first step is this a differentiator? Does this solution give you company competitive advantage? If yes, then build it. This is your Omenapiirakka. If your team needs it, but your company doesn't win with it, then buy it. Just go out and buy frozen pie, right? But then there is a situation, like in the case of my frozen crust, when I need something now to unlock the value. While the team is working on a longer-term solution, this is what I call a bridge. A bridge is basically kind of like your solution that helps you moving faster without pretending that it's a long-term solution. So scaling smart doesn't actually mean building everything or buying everything. It means that you have to be intentional and make the right choice for your team. So think about what deserves your craft, your Omenapiirakka, and what is okay to just go and buy. Okay, so scaling always sounds exciting. Faster, bigger, better, more, smarter. But scaling doesn't just multiply what works, it multiplies everything. So it multiplies all the good stuff, but also everything that is fragile, that is broken, things you wish nobody knew existed. So let's talk about what really happens when things grow. Legacy starts now. I am sure you've all been in the situation. Oh, let's take this shortcut, let's do this quick fix, and then you are fixing that months later. Every shortcut you take becomes a permanent solution. So as you think through your architecture and you build things out, think about your future self. This is how kind of what goes through my head. Will myself 6 months from now hate my current self for making a stupid decision? Will my team 6 months from now have to apologize for the choices we make? Legacy doesn't start in the future. Legacy doesn't start on purpose. It starts by accident, but we choose to live with it on purpose. You can't retrofit quality. You can't build now and promise to clean it up later. You won't. You can't sprinkle quality testing at the end. You have to bake it in from the very beginning. Test quality as a feature. Give it a name, assign an owner, and schedule it. So your testing, your observability, your documentation, they're not just nice to have. They're must-haves. Fragmented teams equals fragmented systems. Misalignment between teams leads to misalignment between systems. Every handoff adds delay, every silo adds lag, and the silent killer here is actually knowledge debt, and knowledge debt grows a lot faster than tech debt. Very hard to fix. And the solution here isn't another shared system, it's shared context. So schedule lightning talks, make team connected, rotate ownership, make sure your team shares successes as well as failures, because connected teams build connected systems. Speed without direction, it just scale chaos. It feels good to move fast, but if you don't know where you're going, you just get lost faster. So the antidote here, the antidote to chaos, actually isn't speed, it's trust. So make sure you build in transparency into all of your processes. Make sure everything has lineage, ownership, definitions, assumptions. Don't tell people to just trust it. Show them that they can. So scaling isn't about who's bigger or faster. It's about care, alignment, and integrity. And whatever you scale is what you become. So if you scale mess, that's how you scale rot. And I bet all of you right now thinking, but what about AI? Won't AI fix it all? I don't know. What do you think? AI, the savior. Will it fix all our problems, fix all broken system and fragile pipelines? I'm not going to have you opine on that, but I'll tell you what I think. AI is not a savior, it's a sous-chef. AI doesn't know if your apples are fresh or rotten. It doesn't know if your data is outdated or refreshed. It doesn't know if your assumptions still hold. It just bakes faster. AI multiplies everything you feed it. So if your data is clean, your systems are well-defined, your teams are working well, AI becomes a force multiplier for innovation. But if your systems are fragile, your definitions are broken, AI just automates your chaos, but it does it louder and it does it faster. So the question really isn't whether we should be using AI. The question is, what are we feeding it? And that is success at scale. So it's not speed for the sake of speed, but it's confidence that lets you move faster without breaking what works. So this is Omenapiirakka. Hopefully it looks authentic. I baked it from scratch for this keynote. I think it tasted amazing, if I say so myself. The family liked it. Because if I'm going to stand here and tell you that foundations matter, that care matters, I better be willing to do the work myself. But I didn't actually start there. I started many, many, many years ago with a copy of a very old recipe from an old cooking book of the good old regular American apple pie. And the first time the pie was kind of soggy and tasted a little funny, but I didn't give up. So I kept trying, and I kept trying to figure out what temperature I need to use, what ingredients worked well. And it wasn't just luck. This wasn't luck. This came from continuous learning. So mastery doesn't come from skipping steps. It comes from understanding the basics. So same thing in data, right? The strong foundations aren't actually the end goal. It's what gives us freedom. Freedom to innovate, freedom to move fast, freedom to fail safely, knowing that we're actually not breaking what works. So I know, you're going to go back to work at some point. And I shared a lot of things. So call to action to you is, when you go back, pick one thing, one system that's untouchable, one thing that's broken, thing you wanted to modernize or change, and just change that one thing. So I started with a story about forgotten soup and almost burnt house. And this is kind of the same thing, again, in data. We can't walk away from things that matter and expect them to turn out fine. So success at scale isn't about speed. It's actually about never stopping the work of care. So you can't automate care. Omenapiirakka does not bake itself. So go back to your work tomorrow or Monday and make one change. Thank you.